Hi, and welcome to our session on Translational Invasion Ecology. I'm Toni Lyn Morelli, research ecologist with the U.S. Geological Survey at the Northeast Climate Adaptation Science Center, and adjunct faculty at the University of Massachusetts, which houses the Northeast CASC. I want to talk to you today about TIE, bridging research and practice to address one of the greatest drivers of global change. Some fantastic co-authors on this work, primarily from University of Massachusetts, but also from the New York Invasive Species Research Institute and Mount Holyoke College. This presentation will kind of lay the groundwork for the whole session, where we have terrific researchers and boundary spanners to talk about tackling this important issue of invasion ecology. As you know, it is a huge issue. One of the primary global environmental challenges and economic challenges of our time. This is a picture of my 7-year-old trying to tackle our personal garlic mustard problem in our backyard. This is maybe just an example of why EDRR and preventative management is the best way to tackle invasive species. There are incredible resources going to invasive species in our country and across the world, both in management staff time and resources, and also research. But there's also a mismatch between what researchers are doing and what stakeholders have said they need. You can see that in Virginia Matzek's and colleagues' paper in 2015. Here, these box plots indicate the difference between what managers would like to see and what researchers are producing. So if there's a one-to-one match, it would be on the 0 line. And you can see the topics that have less research focused on them, either from a basic research perspective or an applied research perspective from the synthesis of the literature that Matzek and colleagues did. And on the other hand, these topics like interaction with soils and biocontrol, where there's more research than managers have called for, and in fact, a lot in these other categories of topics that were not even named by managers. So we have an incredible amount of resources going to a really important pressing issue, but maybe not in the most effective way. And in, we suggest, comes translational invasion ecology to the rescue. Translational invasion ecology is an approach that embodies an intentional and inclusive process in which researchers, stakeholders, and decision makers collaborate to develop and implement research via joint consideration of the sociological, ecological, economic, and political contexts of the problem of invasive species. This is just a modified definition from the Translational Ecology special issue that Carrie Enquist and myself and colleagues put out in 2017 in Frontiers in Ecology and the Environment. I just want to note that all of the papers that are mentioned in this presentation are freely publicly available and open access online. Translational ecology rests on this idea of marrying up research and practice. The research on one side produced primarily in colleges and universities or science agencies like USGS, raw data and analysis and scientific papers based on theory, producing predictions and forecasts, whereas practitioners from management agencies and NGOs are working more with mapping tools and web-based portals in order to do adaptive management and planning and needing decision support. So bringing those two together through TE based on a foundation of principles that lead to actionable science and robust decision-making. These principles can be pictured here in this flower. They include focusing on the decision framing context, good collaboration, engagement, commitment, communication, and good process. In our paper and review on TIE, we then laid out a step-by-step process, like how do you do this? And this is able to be generalized across translational ecology fields, not just within invasion ecology, but here you can see we suggest the first step would be either identifying the problem or identifying stakeholders. So you might have a subset of experts within your group that only have a certain skill set, and so you already kind of know what your problem you could address would be, and then you would look for your stakeholders. Alternatively, as you'll see from my presentation, you can survey stakeholders and see what are the problems and then try to match up expertise to those. You then would meet and discuss needs and identify solutions through workshops, maybe online now in this new world we live in, ultimately leading to practitioners in blue implementing strategies and researchers synthesizing and conducting research, leading to the step 4 of outcomes and output. So the goal being, for example, for practitioners to have produced best management practices, researchers to produce peer-reviewed research tools, and the boundary spanners, an important role for producing outreach materials or policy recommendations. You can imagine then there may be ways to improve, so you evaluate and then go back and improve the process, but if it actually shows that it was a successful process, then you could identify a new problem. From this paradigm of TIE, the RISC, Northeast Regional Invasive Species and Climate Change Management Network, was born 4 years ago, before we knew the concept, the term TIE, but based on this concept. RISC aims to reduce the compounding effects of invasive species and climate change by synthesizing relevant science, communicating the needs of managers to researchers, building stronger scientist management communities, and conducting priority research. It was founded by Bethany Bradley, myself, and Carrie Brown Lima. And now we have a leadership team of about a dozen people based primarily at UMass, as well as a manager in state government in Maine, Nancy Olmstead. Then we support a network of almost 450 invasive species managers and researchers. It's a growing community, really exciting. We've done this all on a shoestring budget over the first 4 years. We're also expanding, although we as a team will focus on the Northeast. We have colleagues across the Climate Adaptation Science Center Network and their partners and the universities they interact with that are picking up the baton, taking our lessons learned, learning from our failures and our successes in the North Central region, Northwest, and the Pacific Islands to create their own RISC-like networks. So what do we do at RISC? Well, one of our objectives is to understand manager needs. One of the ways we went about that was to conduct a formal survey of hundreds of managers across the US that Eve Bury and colleagues ended up publishing in Biological Invasions. One of the things we looked into were what are the barriers for managers to incorporate climate change? And if you just focus on the gray boxes, you can see that the barriers to just managing invasive species are primarily funding and personnel. No surprise there. But if you focus on the red boxes, you'll see that when we asked, what are your barriers to incorporating climate change to managing invasive species? Access to information and availability of information came up as more as barriers, which is really interesting and offered us kind of a mandate to both produce this kind of science and also better communicate it. So that's one of the things we do. One way we do that is to every 2 weeks, we produce a summary of highly relevant scientific papers. We've heard from our partners that they don't have time to read journal articles or they don't have access to all the journal articles. So we produce a management-specific summary with management implications for articles. It just comes in as a short read across email. A couple times a year, we also do a deeper dive. We call these management challenges. On one particular topic, we synthesize 20 to 50 journal articles. We spend tens and tens of hours on these, just front and back of a piece of paper, to try to essentially make very accessible and actionable the science that's coming out on a particular issue. All this information is available at our website at riscnetwork.org. We also found out in our surveys that more concerned managers are taking action to incorporate climate change into their work. We were really interested to see what that looked like. So at our latest annual symposium, which we held in confluence with the North American Invasive Species Management Association's annual meeting in the fall, we held a workshop to learn about climate smart actions that invasive species managers are already taking. And then we wrote that up as a management challenge to share with the community what actions that were already being taken, for example, in strategic planning or preventative management. We also wanted to better understand manager needs by seeing what sources of information they use to learn about climate change and invasive species. The number one was one-on-one conversations with experts and colleagues. We've taken that on by trying to create this interactive network and bring people together at least once a year in our symposia meetings. So you can see that is also a priority for sources of information, as well as management documents and technical reports. We've also just revamped our website, so that ticks that fourth box. We do this network building, and as I said, at our annual symposia, we had a smaller one in 2016, and then have had larger ones, about 100 people in 2017 and 2018, as well as a jam-packed room at the NASMA conference in 2019, where we also held workshops. We are hoping to have another one in early 2021, but we'll see how that goes. Finally, we asked about research priorities, and you can see them listed here in terms of priority. One of these was range shifting species and hotspots. So that's something that Bethany Bradley, our next speaker, will talk about the research she's done as a result of hearing from the managers. We also recently published a paper in Nature Climate Change looking at potential issues of native range shifters and how to assess whether they might become invasive. So come, have a seat at our table, join us on our listserv, go to our website, listen into the rest of the talks, and I'll be happy to take questions.